Oh.
Man, they look like they had so much fun. And no issues, no nothing.
Nothing went wrong?
Are we doing something wrong?
I don't think so.
You know what I bet the people want? Some honesty. So we're gonna peel back the curtain. Hey everyone, I'm Aaron.
And I'm Nicole.
And we're living in our now. If you're new to our channel, welcome. We're so glad you're here and we'd love it if you consider subscribing. If you're already subscribed, welcome back. We're so grateful for every one of you. With our channel, we share with you our experiences related to travel, family adventures, as well as offering camping tips and tricks as part-time RVers. And if you didn't know, we are brand new to RVing.
Yes.
Like, we went tent camping once and said, camping's great, tent camping's not, and bought an RV 2 years later, brand new at camping. You might be wondering then, why in the world do you have a YouTube channel? Why should we listen to you? We think that because we're so new, we're learning so much.
And we have lots of things that we can share with you along the way.
We just got back from our first long trip over the Labor Day weekend. Full disclosure, for us, a long trip was a 6 and some change hour drive from here to Ruidoso, New Mexico. And I know that some of you that's not very long, but it's a decently long travel day. We weren't really sure how everything was gonna go, and it was only a 3-day weekend. So look at a place to go that was cooler than Arizona, and that's where we went. After the trip was done, as we were driving home, we were reflecting on some of the things that happened. We thought, you know what? We should really share this because this might prove to be useful for somebody. And even if it's not useful,
it might be entertaining.
As we go through these things, go ahead and let us know in the comments if you've experienced any of these or some of your most memorable learning experiences during your first year exploring this RV lifestyle. Without further ado,
we came up with a list in no particular order, 9 things that we learned from our weekend camping.
And I know that most people put together top 10 lists, but we like to be a little bit different, so.
We like random numbers.
We like random numbers.
Number 1, he can drive 400 miles and we, the passengers, can survive riding in the truck for 6-7 hours.
And the truck survived as well, but it was a good test because we're looking at doing a 2-week trip next year, just trying to think about for those travel days, how long can we really go and be in the car. As I'm sure most of you know, driving in general is tiring, and when you're driving with a giant wind sail behind you, it's even more tiring. So this was a really good test to see, kind of as we're planning out those travel days, that like, okay, we're comfortable with the idea of going. If we have to do a 6-hour, 7-hour travel day, we can do it. So that was really good to kind of get that off early as opposed to just biting it off when we're planning a long trip.
Yes. Number 2, preparation is key.
We plan everything. We planned everything as much as we could before we left, including our meals. When you're limited to a 3-day camping trip, which really is only 2 nights, you want to make sure that you pack what you need, because when you get to the campsite, you don't want to have to go immediately run to the grocery store, even though that's what we did. But you want to at least have an idea as opposed to just settling on going out to eat or just throwing together whatever you happen to grab out of the pantry. So that reduces some of the anxiety and uncertainty. And another thing that we really do a lot of that we think is beneficial as far as with planning is our backwards planning.
And building in lots of buffer time with our timeline as well.
Yep, so we looked at the campsite website and looked at what time check-in was, which was I think noon or 1 o'clock, and then looked at how long the drive time was going to take us, gave ourselves an extra 30 minutes for potty and gas breaks, and then took an extra hour ahead of that to be able to account for us waking up and packing up the RV and the kids, which ended up putting us at waking up at 4 a.m., which is a little early, even for early risers like us, but it definitely paid off in the long run, and I'm glad that we do that. Which, as Nicole mentioned, our planning allows us to have buffer room if something is to happen, which leads us into number 3.
Mind the dip.
So this is a saying that we've heard before, and we've said it a bunch of times.
Things don't go exactly as you've planned.
And for us, it actually started the morning of our trip. We went out to the RV. If you haven't checked out our previous video, we'll put it up here at the top of the video. I still don't know where those things go. We had issues with our RV fridge. It was in the shop for a while and we got it back. We had the RV here at the house. We started the refrigerator the night before. It was cold. We went to bed, woke up in the morning, went out, got into the RV.
No lights, no power, no nothing. No refrigerator.
So I was really not sure what was going on with that. So we pulled out the owner's manual, we were Googling things, and ended up being that the batteries of the RV just completely died.
So we had to make an alternate plan. Instead of loading up the refrigerator, we loaded up our coolers, put our food in there. Good thing we had some extra bags of ice in our freezer here at the house, but we panicked for a few minutes. Well, maybe more than a few minutes, but we moved past that. We got everything loaded up in the coolers and continued on our plans for the morning.
But all in all, with that backwards planning, that mining the dip allowed us to be able to really only have that whole thing push our start time by only half an hour. We planned by leaving at 5, we pulled at like 5:35. So thankfully we built in that buffer time because it worked out. So we got out of that dip, we got on the road and we were going and everything was going fine.
And then we stopped to refuel the truck.
And of course you shut off the truck to be able to refuel it. Go to restart the truck and the truck doesn't want to start. And
right
then it
away.
Starts really, really sluggish.
But it started.
And we didn't turn it off until we got to the campground. But that was another one where it was like, oh gosh, here we go. And we rose out of that one. But we were stressed out a little bit because we've had an issue with this before where we were stuck at a rest stop for a while until it decided to all of a sudden randomly turn on. So it's definitely something that's on the list of things that I need to go get looked at. We had the ability to mine the dip and continue on.
So then we made it to the campground and attempted to check in to our spot for our reservation we had made back in March, I believe. Come to find out their Wi-Fi was down. They couldn't access their computer system. They had no idea what spot was ours. Our confirmation email did not include our spot number. So we sat around for an hour afraid to turn off the truck because we wanted to make sure we could move our camper to eventually our spot once they figured all of that out. But again, something else to add to more stress and anxiety and frustration.
And this was the dip that we forgot to mine. And we stayed in this, and like Nicole said, it was an hour of just a lot of things building. And that brings us to number 4 on our list of
lessons learned,
which is rushing while stressed is a recipe for disaster. So we looked at a map of the campground, and like Nicole said, it was 6 months ago I made this reservation. We looked at a map, I was like, okay, it's one of these 3 sites. So the kid that was there ran to the sites and came back and said, all right, so this is the site that's empty. So you can go and check in, and if there's any issues, we'll come and find you or whatever. So we've been sitting for an hour, get in the truck, go to that. We're stressed out, we're frustrated. We get there, the people who were next to us had been using
the water line and the power.
Right, so all of a sudden it was like, oh gosh, they got to pull all that stuff out. It's a dirt trail going uphill that you have to back into the site. If you've ever pulled into a campsite at a campground, what is the one thing that everyone does when another rig comes up is they all go out there and watch. And every video has said, don't worry about that, just take your time. And I have smiled and nodded. I didn't take my time because, as we mentioned, I was stressed.
We all were stressed.
Right, we did our normal thing, we got out, we walked the campsite, and it was like, all right, it looks pretty level, let's just try to pull in here. We get on the phone, Nicole's back there being my guide, I'm trying to get the truck turned around, it's an odd angle, again, stress, feeling everyone staring at us. They've got trucks coming from other directions because this road leads to some private property as well as forest land. It's just a disaster. So as we're maneuvering all that, the host of the campground decides that he's going to be helpful and jump in and be my guide. So I'm looking at my mirrors, and I have him, and I have Nicole, and I have Nicole on the phone, and I have him, and he's telling me one thing, and Nicole's telling me another thing, and his directions are different than Nicole's, and I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing. But because I'm stressed out, instead of me saying, all right, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to go out and talk to him and try to figure out what's going on, I was like, okay, I'm going to try to listen to 2 people at one time. Didn't work. And what ended up happening instead is that because him and I have never worked together before, our communication styles were different. And as a result of our communication style, our travel trailer now has customized back rear corner because he did not have in mind as he was backing me up that if he backed me up past the power post as close as he had me and then tried to pull me out, he didn't account for the tail swing. So
and unfortunately, I was not even on that side of the camper to be even aware of what was going on. So we've got some classy packing tape now, custom job now.
That's another thing that's on the list of things to work and get fixed. But for sure, we should have realized that our stress was not going to be productive with anything that we needed to get done. And as everyone can attest to, I'm sure, setting up a campsite can be stressful all in itself. We should just hit the pause button and let ourselves kind of calm down, then approach it. But that's why we're here, because it was a lesson learned.
It was. That brings us to number 5. We learned about conflict resolution. Having to wait and the confusion about the check-in process and the way it was handled from the campground to us just kind of built on our stress level.
I'm not a confrontational person, but at the same time, I was stressed out. Nicole was really stressed out. She was crying. Like, it just wasn't a good time. And the host, who was a
contributing factor?
He was a contributing factor to some of the stress, because the whole check-in process and their response to it, and then he was the ground guide. We weren't very nice to each other.
And we tried to resolve this conflict almost immediately after getting the camper finally in the correct position and set up, where our tensions were still high. We were still very upset about the whole day and essentially everything that had gone on up until that point. So trying to resolve a conflict when you're still at that peak of stress and anxiety and anger and frustration is not the time to do that. So lesson learned, take time, again, decompress, calm down, talk it over, maybe get some food, something to drink, settle down, maybe even just resolve the conflict the next day.
In marriage, you shouldn't go to bed angry, but I think that in cases like that, where you're dealing with other campers or other people just in general, it's okay to let both of you guys settle down.
Yes.
So conflict resolution, definitely should have just hit the pause button. I mean, it's kind of snowballing into each other, but we definitely should have hit the pause button and been like, hey, we can talk about this tomorrow.
Which kind of brings us right into number 6. Negativity breeds negativity. We could have just sat there the rest of that, Saturday evening, and continued to wallow in our sad feelings and frustration. And then just let that feed into the rest of the day,
and weekend.
Yeah, the rest of the weekend into our attitudes affecting the kids' attitudes and everyone's experience. We drove 400 miles. We needed to take some time to experience our frustrations and feelings, but then move on to it, because we still had a day and a half to spend and explore and spend time with family and have fun. So even though we forgot pillows and had to make a quick trip to the store for that, and even though I realized I forgot a key ingredient for the next night's dinner,
chicken.
Luckily there's a Walmart close by.
But it just trying to be positive, like Nicole said, instead of just dwelling on everything, all the negativity, just being positive, encouraging each other, trying to be positive about it, reminding each other that, like, hey, we're on vacation.
We can still go have fun and enjoy the trip.
The old saying, nobody died. Those type of things, like just being positive, because negativity breeds negativity, but at the same time, like, positivity does a really good job of countering negativity, and I think we did a pretty good job of doing that. We don't want you to think that everything we have to share with you as a lesson learned has been negative. So pick that chin up and let's look at number 7. These type of things, for us at least, and hopefully for you, improves our communication and strengthens our relationship, which might sound a little bit weird, but we feel that we have a really good communication between the two of us, and things like this, where we're able to handle it internally and kind of talk each other back to a calmer state and everything else, and then just kind of talk about everything. It's really good. That going back to that negativity, breeding negativity, and positivity being a good counter, that feeds into the communication and the relationship building, and we were able to look at it and be like, all right, like, we were still there supporting each other, instead of any one of us pointing the finger at each other and being like, hey,
right,
you shouldn't have listened to that dude, or you shouldn't let him take over, or any of the things. Like, it was like, we're in this together.
It was a supportive situation. We're a team. Number 8, this is a good one. This was our first time camping without our 2 dogs. We love our dogs. They just might not love camping as much as we do.
For those of you with dogs, I'm sure that you can at least identify with a little bit of this, where the dogs are awesome, like 80, 90% of the time when you're in your environment. But you bring them out to other environments, there's all these new sounds and smells and other people's dogs, and you have to worry about their bathroom routines, even more so because you're in this little area. It was just really nice to not have to worry about their schedules and our schedules and their needs and they're not being able to be calm. So with all the stress that we had,
yes, camping without our dogs was a lot less stressful. And I can only imagine going through that course of the day with 2 dogs and the additional stress and anxiety that would have caused. But even without anything that happened, just not having the dogs there as an extra responsibility was kind of nice.
but like Nicole said, we do love our dogs. You will see our dogs in future episodes, but this trip without the dogs was really nice.
Yes.
And the final and most important takeaway from all of this is that we had fun.
Yes, we had a great time with the family. We got to go exploring, do some hiking, do some...
Wine tasting?
Oh, yeah. Well, the kids didn't do that.
No, they didn't. But it was a good time. That's again looking at not letting everything bring us down, focusing on the positive stuff. Sunday was a blast. Monday we weren't rushed getting out of there. It was a good trip.
Yeah, Monday, packing up everything, getting hooked up, and heading out. Everything went smoothly on the drive home.
Everything went great. We had a good time. We're still looking forward to making more memories, to sharing more adventures with you guys. And speaking of which, you're going to want to check out our next 2 videos, because the first video will be reviewing the campground that we stayed at, which is Rainbow Lakes RV Park. And then the next video after that, we will be sharing with you our exploration of Ruidoso. So make sure that you're subscribed and hit the notification bell and give us a big thumbs up if you learned something or if you laughed. And
Share our video.
We appreciate all the support and love and comments and feedback and getting to know everybody and starting to connect with everybody. It's really awesome. It's a lot of work to do YouTube, as I'm sure that you can attest to, but it's been really fun. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.
See ya.
Bye.